When asked to include a reflection on Mother Frances as part of this year's annual retreat, I wondered what could be said of her. During our 150th anniversary celebration of the founding of our congregation, we reflected on Mother Frances as woman, as mother, as foundress, and we framed her life as a tabula or docile. At the same time, we were gifted with the biography, writings, and reflections on Mother Frances's life as they were published from the work of our sisters Adele Frances Gorman, Emily Ann Herbs, and Mary Catherine Gurley. And more recently, we received a booklet prepared by members of our congregation inviting us to an ongoing reflection and faith sharing in commemoration of the death of Mother Frances in this 150th anniversary year. So what more is there? After hearing Darlene Pride's presentation on early Franciscan women, examined through the lens of our Franciscan core values of the Third Order, I found the answer to my question. During this anniversary year, as we participate in this year-end retreat, why not consider our own Third Order foundress, Mother Frances Bachmann, through these same core values, so that her story might continue to speak to us today. Darlene began her presentation with family photos, and one of my hobbies, as some of you know, is researching my own family's history. In the last several years, I've connected with relatives I only knew on paper, and sometimes only through vague references in family stories. Just this year, I was able to obtain my first photograph of one of my great-grandmothers through a chance connection with a mutual great-granddaughter. As I continue to study that photograph and the others I've accumulated over the years, I attend to the details, the expressions on faces or non, the clothing and hairstyles, even the backgrounds, in light of the pieces of family history I'm learning through all of these cousins. And as a result, I continue to experience deeper insights into who I am in this larger family portrait. Whether what I learned is joy-filled or tragic, my life is expanded and enriched through this deeper sense of connection across the generations. Now, Mother Frances's photos are virtually non-existent. So I wondered what it would be like to consider the events in Mother Frances's life as snapshots with which we can reminisce. Would we see in those photos the core values of a Third Order woman? As I began glancing through the events of Mother Frances's life, what first caught my attention were the losses. As a wife, the loss of her husband. As a mother, the loss of direct care of her children. As a foundress, the loss of her dear advisor, St. John Newman, and again, the loss suffered with the splitting of her congregation. And finally, the loss of her own health at an early age. Loss, pain, impoverishment. Yet in the midst of this, she discovered the gifts, the gift of her religious vocation, the gift of sisters, and good sisters, as she said. And over time, the gift of seeing all as gift of a providential God. Perhaps it was this insight into poverty that led Mother Frances to proclaim, "As long as God does not stop giving to us, we shall not stop giving to the poor. Now, while poverty can and often does begin with what happens to us through outside circumstances, such as the losses experienced by Mother Frances, I believe it becomes evangelical poverty when what we have lost and what we receive in turn both are recognized as gifting. It doesn't lessen the pain of loss to recognize as gift what was held only temporarily and then let go of. It simply enables us to acknowledge the truth of our own limited creaturehood and to trust in a God who provides all. For Mother Frances, then, evangelical poverty was a poverty that invited generosity. The gift received, in turn, becomes the gift given, passed on, even sometimes simply returned to God. Now, while recognizing and reflecting on this experience of poverty in Mother Frances, I realized that poverty and humility might well be two sides of the same coin. Humility arises from a deep sense of truth, an honest acceptance of reality. I am who I am before God and nothing more. This understanding of humility then invites self-honesty, acknowledging one's limitations in order to discover one's strengths and one's gifts. Genuine humility then is not self-depreciation, nor is it abusive humiliation. So as I continued to reflect on some of the very same snapshots and a few others, I began to notice the humility they also revealed. What limitations did Mother Frances recognize when she saw herself as a widow? When she was faced with letting go of her children? When she experienced not once, but twice, separation from her blood and religious sisters, some of whom were both? When she heard criticisms leveled against her? And finally, when she experienced her own failing health? A loss that prevented her from making that final trip to East Eden. Whatever the limitations in her life and writings show us that she accepted these as best she could. Not perfectly, but as best she could, honestly sharing her feelings in her letters and admonitions. So in acknowledging her limitations, what true strengths and gifts did she discover in herself? I believe that the first might well be the grace to respond to a call to religious life, specifically the call to a Franciscan way of life, as she listened to Anna Dorn speak about the Third Order rule. Even though she may have been in the midst of her experience of grief and loss. In her response also to being named leader of that fledgling group of religious women, she tapped into her capacity for practicality and risk-taking. Reading her biographies and letters, we see her both acknowledging her personal limits, but at the same time revealing the simple truth of who she was. Her limitations enabled her to know both compassion and courage. When the congregation faced its own limiting realities, this humility, this simple acceptance of life's circumstances, enabled her in turn to encourage her sisters We all remember the wonderful quote that we find in her longer admonitions. Courage must animate us. Courage stimulate us. Courage must guide and support us. In seeking out and handling cautiously every detail of the work which our holy vocation calls us to. Again, in her letter to Sister Antonia in Syracuse in June of 1861, she wrote about her experience of knowing the derogatory words being spoken about her as a foundress. Here she reveals the truth that is perhaps the foundation of her own courage. She writes, "Yet our dear Lord chose this despised instrument, and he had his all-wise purpose in doing this, so that we would never appear great in our own eyes, nor in the eyes of the world. Rather, we should always remain despised, always humbled. We should not work for honor and praise, but should do all things for God." Poverty and humility, values that go hand in hand. But as I think we all realize, poverty, or humility rather, in the face of life's impoverishing experiences is not a simple result of cause and effect. On any given day, we see that the impoverishing experiences of life can lead to anything but humility. It was with this awareness that I once again looked at those snapshot events of Mother Frances's life to discover there in the background the core value of contemplation. This contemplation is not necessarily the piously ecstatic image that seems to be portrayed in that earliest portrait of her. It is also, and probably more so, the contemplation of seeing in Jesus Christ, God's incarnate self-revelation, the truth of our own life. In praying life's moments then, we gaze long enough to recognize God's presence in every experience, no matter how small or no matter how painful it might be. So taking to prayer the death of her husband, her Franciscan vocation, the malicious gossip, the growth of the congregation, the death of Bishop Newman, the separation of the congregations, her own failing health, her many life experiences. In all of these, Mother Frances invited God to reveal what she herself did not always see, and to be affirmed in the things she saw when others did not. While she may not speak of her prayer in any systematic or regular way, her continued exhortation to her sisters to be faithful to prayer in itself reveals how valued it was to her. Even though it would seem logical to start with the core value of ongoing conversion, I've placed it last in these considerations because in my reflections, I realized that we often only recognize conversion in moments of hindsight as we look back over the course of our life experiences. Perhaps it's only when we have looked back through all the snapshots in the album of our life or the life of others, from beginning to end, that we notice the pattern of ongoing conversion. I think this is no less true in Mother Frances's life. It's in those moments of change, of losses and limitations, both her own and others, that we recognize the moments, both great and small, of her ongoing conversion. Some of those moments are dramatic changes in direction in light of unforeseen circumstances, such as in the death of her husband. Other moments are more simple, maybe one she even looked back to. As in her childhood, she chose to give up skating out of compassion for a poor old man. But whether dramatic or simple, the many moments of her life became crossroads, thresholds, so to speak. Sometimes those moments of continuing, ongoing conversion were invitations to change direction. At other times, they might be considered simply an invitation to move forward. Each time, those moments called for choices to be made. Choices in order to continue traveling the road of gospel life. One of our sisters recently described ongoing conversion as openness to the ever-expanding mystery of God's self-revelation. It is lifelong, only ending in God's full revelation at our death. This was as true, I believe, for Mother Frances as it is for us, her daughters, today. So the death of Mother Frances, the last snapshot, so to speak, in this album of her life, the one that we're commemorating this year, is its own ending and beginning. As we continue to contemplate it more closely this year, each of us is invited to recall our Franciscan family's stories, our snapshots. We may not have any new information to add at present about Mother Frances, and that is sometimes the case in all families. But the retelling of stories and snapshots to view, those we have inherited, enable us then to be enriched in our lives, enable us to see something further revealed that we didn't notice at the first or the second or even the third telling. Preparing this presentation enabled me to do just that, to look and listen once again, this time through the lens of our core values, and let the stories expand and enrich my life. My life as a member of the family of the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia. I invite you to do the same. What snapshots and stories will you consider? What values will they reveal to you? While I was preparing this presentation, I took a walk along the main corridor with its description of our family heritage in pictures and words. As I came to the present time, I was struck by the words describing who we are today. It seemed to me to capture these 4 core values as we strive to live them. So I close then with those words. Nurtured by those we serve, we are called not only to minister, but also to value one another and to radiate God's love to all. Today's complex world needs the Sisters of St. Francis in a different way than the world needed the Franciscan women who came before us. We honor our heritage by responding to new challenges, focusing those who are poor and neglected. We seek justice by confronting the oppressors of those whom we serve. And we continue the tradition of Saints Francis and Clare of Assisi and our founding members to live simply in a world of ever-increasing consumption. The transformation of our congregation into an ever more effective instrument of peace is the work of God, who gives us the grace we need to be a compassionate presence in our world. We respond to God's goodness by helping others to understand the meaning and dignity of their lives. Our ever-deepening relationship with God moves us forward to meet ever-changing needs of our sisters and brothers. Thank you.